Lesser nighthawk. Oh, nice.
Yeah, thanks to John Grosskopf.
Where did you see it?
On his property. Other people can see it if you go to his website on eBird. I mean, I shouldn't speak for him, but just tell him you really want to see it. He has his email in his eBird link, you know. He's Mr. eBird Sarasota, actually eBird Florida.
Leslie says lesser nighthawk and several other birders. Yep. Lynn heard a whippoorwill across the street from me. I'm seeing a trend here.
Yeah, it's nightjars all the way.
Getting ready for next month's presentation.
That's right.
Sue Herring saw a robin near the Nature Center parking lot in the shrubs just past noon.
And a limpkin shrieking, I'm sure.
That limpkin has been, I'm sure not just one limpkin, but they are very noisy out there right now.
Yeah.
It's their time of year.
It really is. And they're letting everybody know it.
Lori Huppy saw a wood stork in Lakewood Ranch. They're always fun to see. Those big old blukes. Let's see. All right. Well, all right. That's it. All anybody's going to share? Ah, Mary Alice Curtis, a prairie warbler. All right, on a guided walk at Raymond Road.
I saw Mary Alice Curtis today at Raymond Road.
Sue Herring's husband Bill saw a hummingbird. Wow, late morning outside their living room. Really special. Cynthia Escher at Myakka River State Park last evening on the upper lake, black skimmers, red-breasted mergansers, white pelicans, sandhill cranes, and a Caspian tern. Wonderful. That's a great find. All right. All right, well, let's get started. I've just a few housekeeping items. We will be, we'll start with a short business meeting. Then Margie will introduce our presentation with Dr. Jamie Rotenberg. Anytime during the webinar, if you can submit your questions in the Q&A, which you'll find at the bottom, and if you move your cursor, you should see it. Those questions for Jamie, but if you have questions about anything else, you can put them in the chat. I'll be monitoring both. But for the speaker, it's easier for us just if you put that in the Q&A section. And we'll have that after the meeting. So I'm going to now turn it over to our president, Sarah Reisinger, to talk about
our fearless leader. Dun, dun, dun.
There we go.
Well, obviously the big thing this week is Wednesday at 9 a.m. We are the only thing on the agenda for the county commission meeting. As many people that can turn up, even if you don't want to talk, that's completely fine. We'd love the support and the show of solidarity to just show up, show people care. I know they've received a lot of emails, and our one-click email has been very successful. But if you are going to speak, we are hearing the time limit is 5 minutes. I would keep that as tight as possible and try not to be redundant so that we're respectful of everyone's time. And as always, make sure that we are being kind and factual in what we are saying. There's no enemies. We're just trying to make sure we're preserving this land so that Celery Field stays intact and we get to see all the beautiful wildlife that we always have enjoyed there. But yes, 9 a.m. Wednesday the 12th. Show up. It's downtown. It actually is not in Venice this time. So it's at 1660 Ringling Boulevard. If you plan to speak, arrive early and get your speaker card signed and turned in, so that you can get a decent time and get in the queue. Looking forward to a really great day of everybody turning up and speaking up. The next thing we have going on is everyone who was and has been a member should have gotten an invitation today. If you did not get an invitation that looks like it does in the bottom corner here, where it says Sarasota Audubon Society Get Started, what you're going to do is click that Get Started link, and that's just going to set up your profile in Member Planet. And most people are not renewed because we've been a little delayed. So it will allow you to renew at that point when you click through. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that that worked for you. If you are struggling at all, it's usually a very simple fix. I can easily resend an invitation to if you accidentally delete the email, or if it doesn't work for you, I can resend it. Just whatever your issue is, go ahead and email info at or Sarasota Audubon President at gmail.com, and then I can help you, or info at SarasotaAudubon.com. Either one, and it'll come to me and I can help you get that sorted out. But I'm very excited about this new platform. It's going to allow us to give you guys actual benefits for your membership. We've rolled out the 10% off in the gift shop. So that starts immediately. And then as we get into the next calendar year, you'll have opportunities to register for events early. And we're going to try and onboard some more members only events that are really fun. So really looking forward to getting this up and running. The final thing that we have is on February 22nd, we're going to do a really big Sarasota Audubon Day. We're going to have food trucks out there. We've got guided walks. At 9 a.m. we have one for adults. And at 11:30 we have one for kids and families. We're going to have some kids activities. It's just going to be a lot of fun. We've got the boardwalks both staffed until 3 p.m. that day. I've got some fun vendors coming in. It's just a good time to gather. We'll have some garden tours. I'd love to see everybody. And if you'd like to volunteer, please reach out to Andy or I or Sue, just anybody that's usually at the Nature Center, and we can get you hooked up with a volunteer position because we've got plenty to do. That's really all I have.
So we'll turn it over to Margie.
Good evening, everybody. It is my great pleasure to introduce you to Professor Jamie Rotenberg, who is actually Professor Emeritus of Ornithology at the Department of Environmental Sciences at the University of North Carolina in Wilmington. And I'm happy to say, although he has these spectacular academic credentials, he now lives right here. In fact, he's speaking to us from his, he's pointing out his Sarasota Audubon t-shirt. And he's right here with us in Sarasota. So Jamie received his PhD at the University of California in Riverside, specializing in tropical community ecology. I hope you'll tell us more about that. He began as a Fulbright scholar for his PhD research in 1997, leading bird monitoring and research projects in Guatemala, the Yucatan Peninsula near Cancun, Mexico, and Belize. During his time in Belize, Jamie and his team discovered the northernmost and only known Harpy Eagle nesting pair. So cool. When Harpy Eagles were thought to be extinct in that country. His project, the integrated community-based Harpy Eagle and Avian Conservation Program, saw Jamie and his team observe and monitor a harpy eagle nest and band thousands of migratory and resident birds. So Jamie's other projects include studying the bird community and rainforests along a watershed, all, I guess, in the tropics, right? Yeah. Cool places we should all go visit anyway. Maybe you'll lead us there on a special tour sometime soon. Anyway, studying the bird community and rainforests along a watershed, restoring rainforest using chocolate agroforestry, and single species conservation of migratory wood thrush. So today, Jamie will give us an inside look at his chance encounter with the Harpy Eagles, as well as telling us all about the programs he helped initiate in Belize, all due to this important discovery. So recently retired from the university, Jamie is currently president of the board of directors of Be Free, and I'm sure you'll tell us all about that. The Be Free is the Belize Foundation for the Research and Environmental Education research and environmental education in Belize. It's the nonprofit that runs the research site he's been working with. So take it away, Jamie. I'm so glad that you're going to be telling us all about Harpy Eagles.
Well, thank you, Margie. Thank you so much. And thank you, Sarasota Audubon, for this opportunity as well this evening to be with all of you. Let's see, I'm going to share my screen here right away. Hopefully this will work. Everybody see that? Is that coming out? Hold on now. Is it coming out? Okay,
Yep.
Wonderful. So I'll get right into it also too. And again, thank you, Margie, for the great introduction. The title of my talk is The Adventure of a Lifetime. It truly is, it still is, discovery of extinct harpy eagles in Belize. And I'll talk a little bit later about Be Free, and my former university is down there too, UNCW, Environmental Science. I was in the Department of Environmental Sciences. So let's begin this adventure together. Usually with these kind of talks like this, I like to give an outline at first. And so you know where I'm going with my talk. And so first off, I'm going to give a little geography, like where the heck is Belize, right? And some background about myself and a little bit of background information about Harpy Eagles. Then I'll actually talk about the expedition where we actually discovered a juvenile Harpy Eagle for the very first time. Then we'll talk about how we found the mating pair and the discovery of a nest, which was really exciting. A little bit about research and monitoring, not too much. Then some sad news, actually, Mother Nature and a tragedy, but the eagle's resilience. So we'll talk about that. Some exciting news again about the eagles that showed up at the reserve. And then from eagle discovery to much, much more. And then like what's happening now. So a little bit first about where things are. So here we are, at least I am, in Sarasota in Florida there on the map. Where in the world are Guatemala, Cancun, Mexico, and Belize? And so if you can follow my pointer here, there's Guatemala in Central America. There's a circle there that's popping up and down. Hopefully you can see that, where I did my PhD dissertation work. Then I did a postdoc in Cancun, Mexico. I mean, someone had to take that job, right? Actually, it was about 50 to 75 miles outside of town, out in the middle of a dry, quote unquote, rainforest. And then I got the opportunity, a colleague of mine invited me to go to Belize. And you can see Belize is a small country nestled in between Guatemala and Mexico. It used to be British Honduras. And it is the only English speaking, that's the official language actually of Belize, English speaking country in Central America. They speak a lot of other languages there too, including Spanish and Mayan and whatnot. But the population there is small. Like I said, it's about the size of New Hampshire, and there's only about 425,000 people who actually live in the entire country. So I'll talk a little bit about that in just a second too. There's a lot of reserves and protected areas in Belize. So back in 2005, I got off the plane at the airport, and did I ever dream that I would ever see a Harpy Eagle? And the answer is no, not at all. not in my wildest dreams, because I had been to Costa Rica, I'd been to these other places like I just showed you in Guatemala, for example, and Mexico. And I was told by colleagues, if you really want to see that kind of an eagle, you got to go down to Costa Rica. And quite frankly, they've kind of disappeared from Costa Rica. You really got to go to Panama or South America. And to see maybe the closest nest in Panama would be about 700 miles away from Belize. So that's quite a difference. So that was not on my mind when I arrived there at all. So to step back just for a second and talk about harpy eagle and bald eagle facts, people always ask me since all this has occurred, how does a harpy eagle stack up to our bald eagle? Well, here you go, pound for pound, as they say, right? On the left-hand side, you can see this is all from the Peregrine Fin website, so there's current information as well from them. Population status is near threatened for a harpy eagle. Body length, as it says there, is 3 to 3.5 feet tall, if you will. It makes it a little bit taller than our bald eagle. The wingspan, though, as you can see, if you look at the bald eagle, is much longer actually, or can be much longer, but still 6.5 feet. Those are some wings out there. The thing is, actually, it's interesting. A harpy eagle doesn't soar. It is not an eagle that soars. Instead, it's more like a Cooper's hawk that you would find out in the forest, and it's going to, kind of shoot through the trees and whatnot. Again, harpy eagles never soar, not like our bald eagle that you would see, or our ospreys around here even too. But here's the other catcher: is the weight. Some birds are very light, 9 pounds, but up to 20 pounds. That's a huge bird. This is why they're considered the largest eagle in the Americas, and many people, including myself, the largest eagle, at least, in the world. So additional harpy eagle facts as well. The female is always larger than the male, and that occurs with a lot of raptors as well. Again, the females are the ones that get up to be 20 pounds, and the male is much smaller. These are two individuals that I was able to see quite often at the Belize Zoo. And they're two individuals that were there. The one on the right, though, shows a close-up of talons. Talons on these guys are as big as bear claws. So that gives you an idea of the bulk and size of a harpy eagle. They're big. We'll talk about what they eat for breakfast and lunch in just a few minutes. So what's the worldwide range of a harpy eagle? And here's this map. If you look up on the top again, you can see ourselves in the United States and Florida there. There's Cuba. This square there on the left-hand side is then enlarged on the right-hand side, showing where we actually found the nest location in Belize. But you can see the bulk of the population is actually in South America. And if you can see my pointer, hopefully you can see it, kind of making a circle here around South America here. But again, you can actually see there's a good population in Panama as well. But most of the other populations, in particular in Mexico and the rest of Central America, are just decimated. They're gone. Either they've been hunted out, rainforest destruction and deforestation just has left the population just at zero. And that's what happened in Belize, or at least the status of harpy eagles in Belize when I arrived there in 2005 was that in 2000, 5 years previously, harpy eagles were considered to be extinct in the wild in Belize. And if you just read through with this excerpt from Sharon Matolo, who's the former director of the Belize Zoo, actually published this note. The near threatened harpy eagle of Central and South America is one of the largest raptors in the world. Its populations have been drastically reduced in Central America by hunting, habitat destruction, and the last documented sighting of a harpy eagle in Belize was in April 2000. That bird was later known to have been shot, and many people shoot these birds on sight as they think they're going to harm their livestock, as they're so large, the birds that is. So now what I want to do is to kind of take you on this trip that I experienced back in December of 2005, and we'll just call it the expedition. So where did I go? So here's that country of Belize on the left-hand side. You can see on the top up there, Mexico, Guatemala to the left, and the ocean, if you will, on the right. But you can see all these colored. I really like this map because all these colored spots really show all the nature reserves and national parks and protected areas that are in Belize. You know, Costa Rica gets a lot of press and whatnot, that they have about 25% of their land mass in reserves and protected areas, which is fantastic. 40% in Belize. Now, not all of these are completely protected. Just like our national forests, for example, they're an extractive reserve. You know, you can take trees out of them. But there are no hunting and things like that. That's similar to Belize as well. However, if we look on the right-hand side, you can actually see where I went in 2005. And in particular, the trip was supposed to go and did go to the Bladen Nature Reserve. And it's a national park, basically, but it's a nature reserve that has one step higher protection than even a national park in Belize. You got to get a permit to get in there. It's so highly protected. And there's rangers who are in there. We're actually protecting the area. And it's pretty strict in terms of how to get in. The gateway to the Bladen Nature Reserve has always been, at least since the 1990s, Be Free, which is the Belize Foundation for Research and Environmental Education, as it says here up on the top, and is in red on the right-hand side. So that's essentially where we went. And how did I get there? I was invited by a colleague at my university who was in the biology department, who actually worked at Be Free and the Bladen Nature Reserve for his dissertation work, and continue to work there for his research. He is a botanist and still continues to work in Belize to this day as well. So here's Be Free. What is Be Free? Was formed in 1995. The reserve size is about 1,153 acres. In 1997, it became an official nonprofit in the US at 501c3 status, so it's a real reserve and all this. Its mission statement is to conserve the biodiversity and cultural heritage of Belize. And here's an aerial photo. You can see this thatch that's there, and it's in the jungle, if you will. There's some buildings that are there on in the insets on the left-hand side of this photo that you can also see. But basically, it's 6 miles into the rainforest away from the main highway. It's completely off the grid. It's solar powered. There's water supply, all these sorts of things. So that researchers, and that's what it was really made for originally, that researchers could go there, do some research, stay fairly comfortably, kind of glamping, if you will, in the rainforest, and study wildlife and study the plants and study everything that a rainforest has. Back to the expedition. Here was the team, if you will. And here I am, yes, a little less gray, but yes, here I am. There's a couple of mine guides to the left of me there. We brought a couple of students with us on this trip. And the other person here I want to just introduce briefly, this is Mr. Jacob Marlin. He is and was the director at that time as well of Be Free. My colleague who invited me is kneeling down on the bottom. That's Stephen Brewer, Dr. Stephen Brewer. But the other person that I really want to mention is kind of silly, but here we go, is Sophia Marlin. And this is the daughter of the director. She at this time is 11 years old and backpacked with us on this trip. She becomes really important as we go along in just a minute or two. So jump in the water with me and let's go. Yes, the trail is 12 miles to get up there, and this is the Maya Mountains that you're looking at, where my arrow is. This is essentially where we went. You can see some of the buildings at Be Free. This is from a helicopter, actually, this photo. Some of the trail, if you don't have a guide with you, you'll never find it. And some of the trail, just literally you jump in the river and you keep walking along and eventually you get up there. So after 12 miles and basically a couple of days, because we stopped along the way, we finally got up to a place where my colleague, Stephen Brewer, said, oh, well, we should start this research project up here. I've been working up here. It's very unique. I'm finding really unique plants, and the two of us should get together and we could do this bird and plant study. Birds are very important indicators. We both agreed of landscape, ecology, and whatnot. And so we had this whole plan that we were going to go up there and do this kind of different kind of research. And here we are setting up camp. It basically just gotten here. My one of the people up there, I think, was maybe one of the students who took this photo, and we started to set up camp at this location which was on like a dry creek bed, basically. And my colleague Steven said, well, first thing we ought to do is kind of walk up the creek bed after going through the river and all this and going up the river. This is the Bladen River, by the way. You can see how clear it is. It's pristine. There are no villages or no one living up there either. But we decided we were going to go up this dry creek bed, see what's there. Well, before I know it, I hear this 11-year-old say, hey, there's a big white bird up here. What's this big white bird? There's a big white bird up here. Do you see it? If you hadn't seen it yet, there it is in that circle. Hopefully you all can see it now. And yes, there's a big white bird. And I'm kind of looking, I don't know, we better get a closer look. So we get a little bit closer. And we get a little bit closer. And this thing puts up its crest. People tell me I'm speechless at this point in time. And we're all looking. And I'm not taking pictures. These are my colleague, Stephen Brewer, is taking this picture. And another colleague of mine went with us, actually, too. Sam Meacham is with us as well. And the two of them have pretty nice cameras, and they're busy. I said, snap away, take photos of this thing. Sure enough, we did. And then, of course, it decided to, well, thought about it, and it started to fly away. But it flew into a tree across the creek bed. So we got another good look at it. Yes, here it is. So we got a good look at the back, took some more photos, and for about the same amount of time that I'm going to talk to you tonight, about 45, 50 minutes or so, the bird was with us. So it wasn't just a fleeting glimpse. You always hear about, oh, I tried to get a good photo of such and such and couldn't. We had a lot of photos, as you can see. And here's this big white bird. So this is just a clip from a screenshot that I tried to do to look kind of dumbfounded because with my mouth open, because that's kind of what I was. And this is actually a view from the video, and I'll talk about the video a little bit later. But there I am. Yes, Dr. Jamie Rotenberg, PhD, ornithology professor from North Carolina. Hey, what kind of bird is this? And during this time, again, my colleagues and even the students tell me I couldn't speak. I was just speechless. And I was thinking in my head, it's not a harpy eagle, not a harpy eagle, not a harpy eagle. It can't be a harpy eagle. Because again, my colleagues all told me, you'll never see a harpy eagle in Central America. And when I got off the plane, did I even think about having a harpy eagle in this trip? Not at all. So we had, bird guides with us, bird books, looking through as much as I could. And since, this bird was white, harpy eagles are white and black, dark black. What is it? Well, maybe it's a juvenile. Well, there are no harpy eagles here. So maybe it's a crested eagle. You'll have to look that one up. They're actually even almost more rare than a harpy. And so we kind of decided, well, since there's no harpy eagles here, maybe it's a crested eagle. And we walked on. So we continued this journey, if you will, and continued the expedition for about 5 miles up into the Maya Mountains. And we saw some incredible things. This is a really wild place. We saw howler monkeys and spider monkeys galore. They were everywhere. We saw herds, 200, 250 members strong, of white-lipped peccaries. Quite impressive. I had never seen anything like that before living in Mexico or even in Guatemala. Only about 100 miles away from this location in Guatemala, all these kinds of things many times are hunted out. We saw a jaguar. Yes, we saw a jaguar. How did we see a jaguar? Well, one of the mornings we were all eating breakfast. I was cooking oatmeal, I think, on a little campfire thing. And next thing we know, off this ridge, we're on this creek, this jaguar walks down the ridge to take a drink, basically in front of us. And we're maybe, 35 to 40 yards away from it. Nobody moved. And I guess maybe the wind changed direction just slightly, or somebody moved. And he looked up, or she looked up at us and jumped in one bound up this ridge and disappeared. Of course, my colleague, Stephen Brewer, had the fancy camera. Actually, he had the camera in his lap and he was cleaning the lens. So he had taken the camera off the SLR camera. There was no photo, just photos up here. This is a different individual, actually. But the other thing too is getting back to birds, there were tons of migratory birds like this wood thrush. There were wood thrush everywhere. Not only migratory birds, but all kinds of birds. And I'll show you some of those a little bit later on. So the expedition concluded. We went back to Be Free. We were really excited. We saw all these things. But in my head, I was thinking, wow, this project with my colleague, it's going to be really tough to do. It's going to be very challenging, really exciting, but I think I better do something about these photos. We need to make sure what we've got here. So I sent the photos to a couple of Harpy Eagle or raptor experts, big raptor experts, actually. Then I went to class. Remember, I'm still teaching at this time at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington. Went to class. I came back and I get these tons of emails from these people back in my mailbox. Where in Belize did you see this bird? This is a Harpy Eagle. You need to protect them. And white bird equals juvenile equals nest. Did you find a nest? Remember, these are supposed to be extinct. We didn't find a nest. We only saw the one bird. But I started to put two and two together myself here, thinking to myself, yeah, white bird means it's a juvenile, means it's a nest. That means there's two other adults there. There's at least three birds there, not extinct, not extinct. So what do we need? We need a research grant. And that was beginnings of the avian program at Be Free and with me as well. So we began with a Harpy Eagle sighting. We realized the need for a wider range bird study, what I kind of always called the community bird study or the small bird study, the other birds besides this gigantic thing, right? But we also wanted to involve local people in outreach education, environmental education, and training. And in Guatemala, I had trained a field assistant who actually to this day works for a nonprofit still in Guatemala. That's more than 20 years later. And in Mexico, I had trained actually some folks to be banders as well. And so I wanted to do something similar. And so did Jacob, who I just showed you as part of the expedition. He was really interested in actually doing some sort of environmental education. Too many people were just being used as like porters and things. And, you know, scientists would come, hire them for a little bit, and then nothing. And I wasn't into that. I wanted to make sure that we were doing something with people. And so we decided we were going to try this integrated community-based Harpy Eagle and avian conservation program. That's a mouthful, but it had a lot of parts to it. And sure enough, we had an appointment with the Nature Conservancy. We went to the Nature Conservancy and they supported it for 3 years, our program, which we were very happy and really got us off the ground. So before I even get into any other parts or anything like that of this program, how do you monitor Harpy Eagles? Well, we hired a team of guys and trained them how to actually get up on a ridge with a nice, it's like Swarovski scope, and start looking for Harpy Eagles. And so they would spend several days a month up where we had hiked to look potentially for Harpy Eagles. And this photo is from one of the ridge lookouts, if you will. There's the dry creek bed that you can see in the foreground. There's the Maya Mountains. We're in the mountains there for sure. And sure enough, they found Harpy Eagles. And just to give you an idea what they were looking at, there's the view from the scope. They would take photos through the scope, of course, with a digital camera. And we would get some of these photos. This is a great one. And this is now 2007, though between, that was the December 2005, took us about a year to get off the ground or so, and then we started really seeing Harpy Eagles. Then in 2008, things got really exciting, really exciting. We decided that we were going to do an all-out push and go up there with about 12 different people. That's, 12 pairs of eyes, a couple of students actually I brought with me, and we were going to look for the nest. And we looked around and marked with special botanical marks trees that we thought might be these really tall trees where the birds might have a nest. We didn't find a nest, but then all of a sudden we found this mated pair of harpy eagles. We were able to observe them for, several hours, about 12 to 13 hours, I think it was, including mating in front of us twice. And they're both in this photo. They're both in this photo. So you may have already seen one of them. Here's one. My circle is right here. Hopefully you can actually see it. Have you found the other one yet? Wait a second. Look around. Okay. And here it is. So there's the other one. And that's the male and female of these harpy eagles. It was really exciting in 2008. And we were so close to thinking about, well, if we found this mated pair now, we know there's the juvenile was there. We think actually in 2009, we actually found the juvenile, refound it again, possibly. And so now we just needed to find the nest. So in November of 2010, we actually discovered the nest. And it wasn't actually myself, it was my team. They were up there doing some banding and some other work from the community bird project, for the bird community, the small bird project, and also looking for nests and looking for harpy eagles. And one of them heard it. We had recordings of harpy eagles, and one of them heard a harpy eagle. And sure enough, they hunted around and looked around and found a nest. Again, I'm at the university. I get a phone call from Belize with the director, Jacob Marlin, frantically saying, "We have the nest. We have the nest. You got to come down here. We got the nest." So sure enough, I did go down there. We definitely found the nest and saw the nest. And sure, as you can see, this is also through a scope. On the left-hand side, you can see there was a juvenile in the nest. And there's one of the parents there. On the right-hand side, too, there's the juvenile kind of hunched over, begging. That's begging behavior. We saw a lot of that while we were making our observations. And again, with the adult right next to it. So we set up a blind, if you will, about 300 and 350 meters away from, or yards, if you will, away from the nest. So, that's 3.5 football fields away, if you will. And we had our scopes there. We eventually brought up a videographer who made a video of this nest find. It was somebody who worked for the BBC and National Geographic. And had done a lot of video work. Obviously, you can see he's got quite some equipment that he brought with him, and we got some great photos and video of the eagle. I'm not going to show you any video. I have the worst luck showing video on these kind of PowerPoint presentations, and so instead, I'll show you where you can actually find the video. It's online on YouTube, and I'll explain that at the very end. But we got some great photos. So here is the male actually standing in the nest. It's a little bit hard to see. It kind of looks like a rock, if you will. But here's the juvenile. It's getting a little bit less white now, too, as we're making our monitoring here. Here it is again. Actually, this is the female feeding the young. And here's a little junior, little baby here, all by himself. How big was that nest? Easily sit 2 people in the nest. It was really large. It was very large. And we recorded all kinds of things, all kinds of prey items, if you will, being brought to the nest. And of course, I'm an egghead academic. We need to publish or perish, so we published the first record of harpy eagle nests finding in Belize. And sure enough, that was in 2012. With my colleagues, Jacob Marlin, and 3 of the actual folks who actually found the nest originally, these folks here. Anyway, one of the things I think was so exciting about this was actually thinking about what kind of food items were being brought to the nest. And here's a whole list of prey items. You can see there's howler monkeys and spider monkeys everybody knows about. Common possum, everybody knows what that is. A white-nosed quadrumundi is kind of like a raccoon, a tropical raccoon. A kinkajou is kind of it's in the raccoon family, but it's almost more cat-like, if you will, but they're very small. They're kind of arboreal, meaning they're in the trees, very small little things. A northern tamandu is an anteater, a tropical anteater. A great curassow is a big pheasant. And hingas are the same like in hingas we have here in Sarasota. And green iguanas. And I have a photo of a sloth. Notice the sloth is not on the menu. There are no sloths in Belize. Yep, no sloths in Belize. And harpy eagles in Honduras, which is south of Guatemala, to South America typically eat sloths, but there are no sloths in Belize. And this was actually not only the first documentation of the nest, but the first documentation of harpy eagles eating other stuff, a lot of other stuff, besides sloths. So it's really pretty exciting. All that was very, very exciting. But then I have a little bit of sad news, and that deals with Mother Nature, a tragedy, but then some good news, and that is the eagle's resilience. So as time went on, we were doing pretty well looking at the bird and making our observations. A GPS transmitter was placed on the juvenile with guidance from the Peregrine Fund, who does these sort of things all the time, and the Belize Zoo to find out how these harpy eagles can survive so far north in its range. The parents leave the nest and don't return after this happens. We were frantic. We weren't going to allow this thing to die, of course. So we adopted the juvenile and started to feed it. And we fed it live chickens. Actually, my team taught it how to hunt, if you will, using established methods, if you will, for captively bred raptors. Then the male eagle just suddenly returned and returned with food. So we were thrilled. We thought, all seemed well until the following. And that is in August 2011 was Hurricane Harvey. This is not the same hurricane that just happened in Texas, I think in 2017, a few years ago. But this was another Hurricane Harvey. It came ashore, became a tropical storm, but still had plenty of punch. And unfortunately, the hurricane took down the nest tree and destroyed the nest. The juvenile died. And myself, and of course, and the team was devastated from all of this. But we were determined to find the adults, and we were hoping that they made it. Sure enough, remember that was in August. This is now December. The guys found the mated pair again. And they both had survived. Not only that, they had already rebuilt a new nest, which is really unusual because these guys nest every 2 to 3 years. And we were thinking really that probably they nested every 3 years or so in Belize, just because some rarity of food and so far north in its range and whatnot. But they had constructed a new nest. So Harpy Eagle new nest. If that star that you can see from this same lookout site is where the original nest was, that's where the new nest was. Literally, it was at less than 500 yards. Again, that's 5 football fields, basically away from the original spot. And here we go again. March 2013, another new juvenile Harpy Eagle. Well, we didn't do anything with this guy. We decided, leave them alone. Let's just make observations, see how our nesting couple does. Let's see how Junior does. Junior fledged, as you can see already, was out of the nest here, did very, very well. And the Harpy Eagles did great. I went up there in 2015 thinking that, well, maybe there was going to be another Harpy Eagle in the nest. We found the nest, but no juvenile. And in 2016, though, we had some great news. All of a sudden, the Harpy Eagles came to us instead of us having to hike 12 miles to come to them. And they started to come to the Bee Free Reserve, where all this began. Remember, that's the 12-mile hike up into the Maya Mountains. So they were showing up almost regularly every few months or so, sometimes only in 6-month intervals, but they showed up at the reserve. And not only that, a pair of them came, they were videoed, and you can actually see a video of that on the web actually too, on Facebook. A juvenile showed up even as well. And are they the same birds? Are they the same birds? Well, this is from another time at the reserve. Somebody else took this photo, I think possibly on their phone. It's a little bit hazy compared to the other two I'm showing you. But one thing I do want to show is we didn't ban these birds or anything like that. They're wild birds. We want to leave them alone. But you can see a mark here. And again, you and I both know they molt their feathers and all this, but I just want to draw your attention. There's a dark black spot right there on this individual. That black spot has moved over here on this individual. This guy, you can't see any of that. Is this the same bird? Well, it's not in the same spot. So are they different birds? Again, I don't know. I'd like to think they are. And that means there are maybe several different adults that are hanging around, which would be great. Are there new nests or different nests? Possibly too. So we'll talk about that a little bit later in the talk too. So from eagle discovery to just much, much more. What else was going on basically while we were doing all this observations of the eagles? That's my question to all of you. And the answer is, well, we were doing this integrated community-based Harpy Eagle and conservation program. Remember the little bird program, right? We needed to also train some folks. And we did all kinds of things, and this collaboration then became this very fruitful collaboration between my university and Be Free. All right, strap in everybody. Now it's time to see some other birds that we saw that maybe you're not as familiar with. I tried to pick out some interesting things like this barred forest falcon. This guy happened to fly not paying attention one day and flew into one of our nets. He did just great, and we released him afterwards. Ornate hawk eagle, he did not fly into a net. As you can see, it's not quite as in focus as the others, is through a scope. But another beautiful raptor in the area. Black-faced grosbeak did fly into our net, and we banded him. A couple of gray-headed tanagers. Also, these are resident species that you can find in this area of Belize. A crimson-collared tanager, beautiful bird. One of my favorites in mid-canopy. Again, we didn't catch these guys either. King vultures. You always have to look, there's black vultures and turkey vultures. And the saying always goes in Belize, be sure to look at those kettles as they're kettling up, because you never know if they have a king vulture or two with them. And here's a couple of them. Here's a crested guan, which is type of like a big pheasant or a turkey, if you will. Crested guan, big, large bird. This guy is very, very small. As you can see, those are my fingers, actually. This is a northern bentbill, one of the tyrant flycatchers. Little tiny guy that you can find in the rainforest there. Scarlet macaws, we never banded any of them, we never caught them, they're always up in the canopy, but we have scarlet macaws in the area as well. And here, just to throw in a couple of migrants here, white-eyed vireo, right here. And of course, I could not show a painted bunting. That's my other bird of choice, if you will. Maybe some of you saw my talk last year on painted buntings that I gave at the center. So again, to talk about a few more things, we did hands-on training, as I had talked about, as part of all this. We actually trained 18 bird technicians. Some are still in the conservation field, others have moved on. But we also brought college students and persons, trained both college students and persons from local villages. And in the picture on the left-hand side, you can see me there. I'm training some guys out in the field. But on the left-hand side, everyone who's kneeling is part of the bird team. And the gentleman in the white shirt is actually the lead bird guy. The rest of us clods in the back are just there for the ride, including me on the right-hand side back there. Anyway, we did point counts and miss netting. What's a point count? You go along a transect, and every so often, basically, you have a count that you do, depending on what your protocol is, between 5 and 10 minutes. We were doing 10-minute counts, and you basically identify everything you hear, so you know your calls and songs, or see. The guys and myself did 751 point counts. We captured over 4,000 individuals during our miss netting. Miss netting again, you put up these nets that are like a fishing net. The birds are not paying attention, if you will. They're very, very hard to see. They'll go ahead and fly into the net. The nets have a pocket, and the bird kind of opens the pocket. The bird flies in the pocket, becomes entangled, and you untangle them. And you can sex them, you can see what kind of condition they are, put a band on them. Of course, if they're migratory birds, it's great to know if you've recaptured them. And many times we recaptured a bunch. There were 232 species and 48 families that we found by doing all that. But in total, between point counts and mist netting, there are 365 total species that we found at this site. We also did the environmental education that I was talking about. We visited local schools, you can see here. We made this wooden model of a harpy eagle so they could see how big it was. And our avian technicians were the ones who were actually trained to do this, not us people from the United States to come to these schools, but it was great to see them go ahead to the schools, even some of the schools that they had been to as elementary kids, to go ahead and be environmental or conservation ambassadors with local kids. Of course, I brought nearly 100 students down to Belize, in particular to the Blaine Nature Reserve and Be Free for study abroad. And there I am on the left-hand side with my wife, actually on the left-hand side as well, this picture. And of course, you know, us academics, publish or perish, we had a lot of publications and conferences that we did. And one thing just to highlight, in 2011, the group Partners in Flight gave us their Investigators Award. What they do always for all their awards, they have someone who make these wooden plaques actually that are hand carved. And we have that, and that's Jacob Marlin next to me again. That's the director of Be Free. So what's our most recent accomplishments? Well, here again is Be Free. You can see the thatch there and the Maya Mountains in the distance, but the community bird study, the little bird study that actually I insisted on us doing at the very, very beginning, because I knew, what if we never saw harpy eagles? What if we never saw them ever again? What would we have? We'd have nothing. Instead, we had this huge amount of data, so much data that basically we were awarded $1 million award in environmental funding for conserving bird lives at Be Free as a migratory bird refuge. And these are, if you will, bird lives on the migratory corridor in particular, and either staying at Be Free overwintering or using it as a way station on further sites further south. The funds were literally used as a land purchase for Be Free Reserve to protect it forever, because it had only been leased, and it had been leased by someone who was a banana farmer, who was a big landowner, and just never got around to making this land, as you can see in this photo, a banana farm. Thank goodness he never did, and we'll protect this land now forever. As you can see too, in this satellite photo on the right that I'm showing you, you can see the Bladen Nature Reserve and some of the other reserves. Maybe you've heard of the Jaguar Reserve. It's literally right next to us there. There's Be Free, but up to the right of Be Free, that area that looks like agriculture, it is. And that's a large village that's starting to get even larger right next door to us, and potentially is going to encroach into these forest reserves. We hope not, and we're doing our best to make sure that the land is protected. Other accomplishments also is our Birds Chocolate Forest initiative. And that is this question: can chocolate save the rainforest? This is cacao, if you will, growing on the right-hand side. Yes, those beans, those pods, I should say, are where the chocolate beans are inside of them. And this is grown under the shade. Basically, we are using chocolate agroforestry to restore rainforests, giving the idea to give people an economic basis to save the rainforest instead of to cut it down, and grow something in the under canopy, if you will, that can have economic viability. We're doing this also in collaboration with the Institute for Bird Populations in the US. They have made a collaboration with us very recently. And one of our most recent accomplishments, this is what I did last year actually, around about this time, was a tall tree mapping project. This is Be Free. I was able to use satellite imagery and drone imagery to measure our trees and find out where the largest trees were on the property. You can see that there's, in the middle here, it says tallest tree. We didn't find any harpy eagle nests. We didn't find any harpy eagles at the time, but we're hopeful that maybe a nest will be found eventually. And now we know where all the trees, at least the biggest ones, are, where they're going to possibly nest in the future. And we could continue to monitor these trees, make sure they're in good shape, and possibly find a harpy eagle on the property itself, actually. So none of this could be possible without funding support. I already had mentioned the Nature Conservancy already. National Geographic, we had 2 National Geographic Society grants actually for some of our expeditions that I've mentioned to you already. The Belize Zoo I've mentioned, the Peregrine Fund, and some of these others as well. Really important for funding supporters. And so I thank all of them. And back in 2005, did I ever think that I would see this harpy eagle when I got off the plane? And the answer, of course, was no. But boy, what a difference. Like I said, an adventure of a lifetime. I became a board member of the nonprofit at Be Free, and currently I'm the president besides. So I retired from my university. These guys recruited me to become their president, and it's been a great 4 years so far, and I'm enjoying it. So I want to thank you all very much. I hope you enjoyed the ride, if you will. Here's all the photo credits from everybody who took photos. There is the website, www.befreebz.org, if you're interested in looking at the Be Free website. And my friend, his name is Panama here from the Belize Zoo, says, I'll just read to you. Hi, y'all. Hope you enjoyed our story. For more info, be sure to see the documentary Wings of Hope on YouTube. And so all you have to do is put Wings of Hope Belize. Be sure to put Belize, or you'll get a bunch of other things on YouTube, and you can actually see the whole video. And that's where I'll stop tonight. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thanks, Jamie.
Jamie, awesome. That's such a fascinating subject, and you're a great storyteller. I really, really appreciate what you've done. Looks like we had one comment in the chat. Eric Turdahl is saying, sweet, I studied jaguars in the Maya Mountains for years in camera traps, but never saw one. I guess the Maya Mountains would be Belize. I'm not sure.
That's correct. The Maya Mountains are actually the mountains that pretty much separate Belize from Guatemala. That's correct.
Well, I want to hint that you invite me and then I can see for myself.
Okay, very good.
It just sounds so fascinating. All right, going to questions and Q&A. Somebody says, Carolyn Primus says, fabulous presentation. Cheryl Lamb says, what kind of trees did you see the harpy eagles in?
I have them here actually because I wrote them down to make sure. One of them is easy. I always remember. The other one, the first harpy eagle nest was in something called a nargusta tree, Terminalia amazonia, if you will, the scientific name. And the second harpy eagle nest tree was a ceiba tree, Ceiba pentandra, just like with some of the trees that we have. We have ceiba trees growing here in Sarasota, actually. But ceiba trees in Belize are much bigger. But those are the trees, exactly right.
And were you saying in your talk that the tallest trees are where you would tend to find harpy eagles?
That's right. And so trees usually in this whole area, the canopy height is somewhere between 25 and 30 meters, or 30 yards, if you will, tall. So a 30-yard tree, 3 times 3, if you will, for feet, is like 90 feet tall. But the tallest tree, that one that I had marked there on the property, was 40 yards tall, if you will. So 4 times 3 is 120 feet tall. Now, if you've been to Ecuador or somewhere else, and if you've been to Brazil and South America, those trees can be 50 yards tall. Why don't we have taller trees in Belize? I mean, I think when I look at a 30 to 40 meter tree or yard tree, that's really big. But I'll explain why we don't have taller trees in Belize with one word: hurricanes. They knock them down.
So we have another question from Chantal Perot. Which other eagles are harpy eagles related to? Were you able to do any DNA studies?
So we weren't able to do any DNA study with this particular bird. Unfortunately, it would have been a great idea. We didn't have maybe the idea or the funds to actually do anything like that. They are closely related to the bird that I mentioned, that is a crested eagle. And crested eagles, if you look them up also on, all birds or eBird, if you will, they'll show up as well. One thing that you'll notice though, like this photo that I've left on here, notice this individual's legs and those talons. They're really heavy. They're really thick. The crested eagle is almost as long or almost as tall, if you will, but much slighter, much slighter. In my opinion, it's almost like looking at, and I think folks will appreciate this, looking at a bald eagle next to an osprey.
Yeah.
I think you get that right away. There's no question that, and when you look at an osprey, it's a big bird, but our bald eagles are much bigger, and that's the difference between a harpy eagle, at least, and a crested eagle, in my opinion. I've
So
never
the
seen a crested eagle, just I'm going by photos and sizes that I've looked at all this time.
So the gentleman that studied or took photos of the jaguar, Eric Turtle, says, I studied mammals. The prey you name are arboreal. So they didn't prey on terrestrial mammals? ?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a good comment too. And they usually, I think they're geared into, if you will, sort of obviously they learn to eat other kinds of prey other than there's no sloths in this area. Sloths are also arboreal. So a harpy eagle is already programmed, if you will, to hunt probably things in trees. So the thing is that coatimundis can be on the ground, and so not just but he's right, they can be in the trees as well. Because we saw one actually being brought back to the nest, did that individual, was it caught on the ground? Was he caught in the trees? I would think probably in the trees. But that's a very good observation, thank you.
Janet Heater asks, does the harpy eagle keep building on top of a current nest? Does the nest get bigger around or just deeper?
Yeah, so they'll reuse the nest over and over again unless a hurricane, takes it down, of course, in this case. But yes, they'll continue to use it over and over again. And a mated pair will stay mated for 20 to 30 years even, which is really quite amazing, which is also typical of big raptors as well.
Yep.
But my knowledge is they'll continue to add to the nest. So they do get bigger, and I'm assuming they might get wider too. Like I said, this nest that we had, two people could easily sit in it and almost lounge in it. The one that we were seeing.
So Jamie, are you saying that the mated pairs mate for life?
So to our knowledge, they will mate to life. That's right, and they'll live a long time. So again, this mated pair potentially from 2005 could still be out there. Is potentially the same one that we originally saw. Again, there's always some other sightings in Belize as well of other individuals here and there, and some of them are quite far away, maybe 250 miles away. They might see another one. One was I was ready for this question. Has anyone seen one recently somewhere else? And the answer is yes. It was actually on Facebook, and one was seen out on the coast, near the coast, I should say, of southern Belize, actually. And so this is all in southern Belize as well. But that was just, I think, in November of this past year. Again, is this a different eagle? Is it the offspring of these two? My best guess is the Maya Mountains in this area is so remote. Just by happen chance, we went up there and we're in the right place at the right time and saw this individual. Are there other individuals that might be up there? It's pretty extensive and pretty wild. And so it's a possibility that there are other individuals in other nests. We just have never found them.
So Mary Alice Curtis asks, in 2016 or after Hurricane Harvey misfortune, the two adults showed up in Be Free. Were you able to observe them with just binoculars, no scope needed?
Yeah, they were just up in the tree. Was I ever there at that time? The egghead researcher? No. So they sent me all these photos, And they would tell me, it'd be like February and I'm teaching classes because there's no, there's no vacation, or something. It's like, you got to come here. Come on, just drop everything. And I'd walk into my, chair's office and say, hey, can I go to Belize tomorrow? And he'd be like, yeah, right. Type of thing. But anyway, but yeah, they were just in the trees. You could just see them. There is, I will just say, because I know he won't mind, a good friend of mine, and I want to make sure I have his last name correct in case you're interested. On Facebook, you can actually look up Wayne Hall, and his last name is Hall, just like A-H-A, like, down the hall. From 2019, he actually took some great video, and Wayne has actually made a wonderful. It used to be on CDs, but now it's on YouTube. It's the Birds of Belize, and it's all these videos and photos. It's a really great kind of homemade thing that he's done over the years. But he has some great video that he took of two individuals that came that year. And they were just, basically you walk out of the kitchen area where where you saw that round thatch was the kitchen actually, and there they were in a tree. And like I said, they came to us, just amazing. After hiking for 12 miles and all that through this wild area, they actually came to us instead. I hope they come back.
So Jamie, because you've seduced us all about Harpy Eagles in Belize, can you tell us a little more about Belize? I recall a long time ago, several friends of mine, I think they were doing scuba diving, and they raved about what a lovely place Belize was to go visit. But I want to hear your perspective.
Sure, I'd be glad to say a lot of Belize is a beautiful place, and the people in Belize are really wonderful. One of the things that I guess for us being from the United States and speaking in English speakers is that it's very easy to get around there and whatnot because you don't need Spanish. You can just go get off the plane and speak to somebody immediately in English. Now, they all sound like they have an accent, and none of my Belizean friends will like it when I say they sort of sound like they're Jamaican. That's not what they sound like, don't get me wrong. But for the untrained ear, they have a sort of a Caribbean sort of accent when they speak English. But they're very easy to get along with, and there are all kinds of different groups of people that seem to get along really well. And besides the people that's there, the country is beautiful. And yes, I think it was Jacques Cousteau, I think back in maybe the late 60s, early 70s or so, that really made Belize famous in terms of the blue hole and diving and it has the second largest barrier reef in the world, and that's a beautiful thing. And I have to say, I've been out there, it's fabulous still. There's still, great parts of the reef to actually see, even though oceans are getting warmer and all that, but it's still a great place to see. But the jungles and the rainforests of Belize are really quite amazing. The other thing that's actually a wonderful thing to do too is to go to old Mayan sites, where there are these Mayan pyramids that I always used to joke around with my colleagues. Well, those are bird platforms that the Mayans built ages ago for us birders to actually be up in the canopy and see birds. But that's of course just a joke. But there are some great places in Belize to see these areas, and they're national parks, so they're also always all surrounded by natural forested areas and great places to go birding. So I can't say enough. Belize is a small country, but it has a wealth of wildlife, a wealth of great people to see and to get to know, and of course, great snorkeling or diving as well.
So I've got a great idea. I think you ought to organize a Sarasota Audubon tour. I mean, you lead it. We go and help be free and make contributions. And we get to maybe glimpse Harpy Eagles, but you're our tour leader. I'm all excited about that. And other people are floating up the thumbs up symbol. And so I know I'm not alone in inviting myself and others to join you. I just hope you're open to it.
So we've got a co-leader. Go ahead, Margie.
Yeah, I'd just love to help. So this gentleman, Eric Turdahl, I don't know where you're located, Eric. Are you located in Sarasota? He says he worked from 1998 to 2018 with his students from Oklahoma, and he was the mule who ferried the DCDs to Belize. He said he'll help on a tour.
Okay.
He's
Okay.
taken a couple hundred folks to Belize. He's in Sarasota. So I think congratulations, you've got your next big project.
Well, there we go. It
I'm
sounds like
ready to
it's
sign up tonight.
sounds like a done deal. No, I love going to Belize. I usually try to get there at least once a year, maybe multiple times. And so maybe it's Margie will have to talk.
Yeah, we'll have to, and we'll have to get a sign up list. This is just too exciting, too fascinating. I'm sorry, we can't let you off with this. So I can't thank you enough. This is truly, really very interesting, and you did such a good job. I know you and I talked, you really worked hard to prepare this, and it really paid off. It's such a fascinating tale that you've told us. Thank you so much.
Well, really my pleasure here. I'll
One
stop
more
my share
question.
here.
Just one more question. There was just a big earthquake in Cancun and I think it was Guatemala. Did that affect Belize at all?
Not that I know. Again,
It
I've
was
been in
like
touch with
7.1 or 2, I think. So
Yeah,
it
no,
just was-
I was just in contact with folks there because I told them I was going to give this talk and whatnot, and they didn't mention anything about it.
oh,
So,
goody. And Eric Turtle says his friends felt it, but felt no damage in
yeah,
Belize.
no.
So
Mm-mm.
Eric, we got to talk. All of us have got to have a powwow so we can get Sarasota Audubon on the map for Belize.
All right.
So if I can just thank you again, Jamie. Yes, so we have a wonderful speaker coming up in March. Gosh, I can't believe it's almost March. So his name is Jared DeRosso. He's a sociologist. He's fascinated with nightjars. Nightjars are like whippoorwills, chuck-wills, widows, common nighthawks, any kind of nighthawk. Until recently, unfortunately, development right in our immediate area, we used to have them right down the road from us. Development is not good for nightjars right now in our part of Sarasota, but up near Waterside, unfortunately. But anyway, he loves whippoorwills. And I think, as I recall, he's from Indiana. He'll make sure he fills us in. He talks about whippoorwills also in terms of the songs they sing themselves and the humans who are inspired by the whippoorwills to do songs about them as humans. And he promised me he will also talk about chuck-wills, widows, and common nighthawks, which are our most common nightjars or nighthawks here in Central Florida. So I hope you'll continue to join us. And as one personal note, please focus for the highest good for Sarasota Audubon and for Sarasota and all of Florida, that the celery fields farm issue on Wednesday is settled for the highest good of everyone involved. So please come to the hearing, even if you don't speak, and please focus that the commissioners do right by celery fields and all of us. God bless. Thank you.
All right. Thanks all for coming. We'll see you next time.